Cool. And welcome to another YouTube show. Today I have my friend from Madrid in Luis Andres Marino with me. He has got his Real Madrid shirt on. May I ask, Luis, what number do you have behind that shirt if you do have one? And if you don't, why don't you have one? But if you do, why have you got that player's number?
Well, hello again. Of course I have a number, mate. Had to get one. I mean, I like quite a few players, but I had to pick Gareth Bale, so number 11. It's my favorite number anyway. So
Oh, why not Cristiano Ronaldo though? Because he's won the Ballon d'Or this year. Obviously, he's probably the world's most popular football player, even more popular than Messi. If you're looking at, Instagram followers, Facebook followers, Ronaldo exceeds Messi. So why have you gone for Bale?
I just identify myself better. I mean, I'm a lefty like him, so I look up to him. Um, Not to say that I don't like Ronaldo too, but I don't know. I just prefer Bale better.
Yeah, I guess Bale's. I mean, they're two similar players, but they have their differences. Both of them are wingers, of course. Play on the left and right wings. One of the things about Bale is his left foot. Like as you mentioned, he has one of the best left foots you'll ever see. Probably the only players which can really rival him would be Arjen Robben and Hulk in the Russian league for Brazil. There's some really most players are generally right-footed, but you have those left-footed players which have something really special about them. Um, do, do, you, do you think there's something to left-foot players which right-footed players might be missing?
Oh, gee, I don't know. I mean, you've mentioned those two players. Um, I mean, the thing about those three, they just have so much power on that left foot. I guess right-footed players have more kind of um, ability to them and spin on the ball. Uh, while left-footed players are just their shots are so flat. Bale's free kicks. Um, yeah, his technique is pretty unique.
Yeah, he's got very good power shots, and he's pretty lethal from any range, whether that's close to goal or outside of it. And he's not just demonstrated that at Real Madrid; he's also demonstrated that at Tottenham Hotspur. I mean, he was their designated free kick taker, and he essentially got them into the UEFA Champions League off his own boot. You see these types of players, for instance, Robin van Persie, another left-footed player. When he went to Manchester United, he obviously dropped out of form where under Moyes and Louis van Gaal, but under that first season with Sir Alex Ferguson, he just was in one of his career best. It was one of his career best seasons. He really was a key reason why Manchester United won the title in Sir Alex Ferguson's last year. And one of the reasons why is, he was very technical on the ball, and you always knew that you couldn't let him have an easy shot because he's just so good at pinpointing where the goals are that if you give him space, he's, you know, very lethal. Um, but it's obviously he's had a bit of a decline in his career. I think he plays for
Fenerbahce.
Fenerbahce. That's right. And sometimes this is a case, when you get older, you need to. I mean, the EPL is a grueling league in terms of your running capacities and the ability to stay fit, which Robin van Persie didn't quite have. Um, and Gareth Bale, of course, had his struggle with injuries, but at Real Madrid, he looks pretty stable in terms of the
Hmm.
injury front. You can't really pinpoint like a major injury he's had. Um, is there anything behind Real Madrid's medical department which makes them better from other clubs?
Gee, well, now that you bring that up, last season was actually pretty awful in that respect. I don't even know. I mean, of course, I follow the club and all that, but we changed manager halfway through the season, and Zidane somehow got us the Champions League. We had so many injuries. I mean, it is true that they have, well, like the best facilities compared to any other club, no doubt about that. Or right at the top. I mean, this season so far they're doing better. They haven't had as many injuries, so yeah. I mean, it's just resources, dude. Like the more money, obviously. I mean, it's less to prove it's not everything, but it does help.
Yeah, I mean, Bayern Munich seem to have this world-renowned doctor. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's called. I'll pronounce it wrong, but he's called Mulat Wolfart, and he's a world-renowned doctor, and a lot of people go to him for injury prevention, injury aids, including AFL players. So
Oh.
Australian Football League players in Melbourne, of course, for those who are unaware of the game, it's a game played in Australia, and you always hear of him as the top doctor. And Bayern Munich, of course, have a quality team, um, and are a very stable club in the Bundesliga. You know, getting rid of a player of the quality of Mario Götze, you would think that would have an impact on their squad, or one might think that, but it hasn't really. I mean, aside from what's their name, RB Lesberg, I think it's called
Leipzig.
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 Yeah, they've
Yeah.
been really challenging Bayern Munich, but they've carried on without Goetze, and they've looked like the stable squad that they've always been. Um, do you see any changes happening to the Bundesliga? Do you see Leipzig vying for the title?
Well, I mean, they played not that long ago, and they lost 3-0, I think, to them. They were playing at Allianz, so it's always going to be difficult there, of course. Um, I mean, if I was them, I'd be happy to get into Champions League. Uh, it's already incredible what they're achieving. So if they finish in the top two, three, because in Bundesliga they have one less Champions League spot. But yeah, I mean, if they achieve that, it would be great for them. Dortmund and Schalke, some other big clubs, are disappointing a little bit so far.
Yeah, in fact, Schalke are 11th on the table, so that's quite unlike them. Normally, they're up in the top
Top
four,
six,
top
you would
top
say.
six. Yeah, Borussia Dortmund is sixth. I mean, they had that season under Jurgen Klopp. Well, they had two different seasons under Jurgen Klopp, who's obviously the manager of Liverpool now, who are going
Mm.
extremely well. Uh, obviously, they made the UEFA Cup final against Bayern Munich. They lost in like the dying minutes with Arjen Robben's goal, but then one of the next seasons they kind of almost just catapulted down in terms of their form. In fact, during some periods of that season, they were fluctuating in and out of the relegation zone. Um, so it just proves to you that not just in the EPL, but in any league, if you're not on your game now, teams like Leipzig that are coming up, they're more than capable of causing an upset or winning in their own right. I mean, Leicester City haven't been going as well in the EPL, but you look at the UEFA Champions League and they're in the final 16.
Round of, yeah. I
So
mean, you have to say they have had their luck in the Champions League so far, because they could have and I wish they would have drawn us, because I would have gone and see them. Can you imagine that Real Madrid against Leicester? but that would have been interesting. Yeah, they drew Seville, so let's see how they go. But as you said, I mean, the teams that are coming up, it's Premier League is the greatest example because I mean, this season, Hull, Middlesbrough, and what was the third one that went up? Burnley. They've struggled. I mean, well, I think only Hull is in the bottom three, but yeah, they're not as high as Bournemouth or other teams were last year, but they're still challenging, to remain in the league. So it's just getting harder and harder to stay at the top now.
Yeah, and what do you why do you think that is? Obviously, there's clubs that have a superior financial advantage over other teams, being the likes of Bayern Munich. I'm not sure of the financial state of RB Leipzig, but I haven't known them as a team which has been a powerhouse financially or in the league, as a matter of fact. Um, is it a case of the IQ of football teams across the board becoming higher? Is it the tactics? What do you pinpoint that down to?
It's a bit of everything, and we said in other shows, also the treatment that the players are getting is better and better at all clubs. Um, yeah, I mean, I mean, we can't exactly know because we're not in those clubs, and they're not going to tell us everything and all the tricks up their sleeve. But yeah, I don't. I mean, then China. I think also China is kind of waking a lot of clubs up. I'm not sure if you heard that recently. Well, they bought Oscar and Carlos Tevez about like not that long ago. I mean, because the transfer markets are in June till August, or sorry, end of August in summer, right? And then the winter transfer market just in January. But the deals can actually be done at any time of the year. And Carlos Tevez has been bought. He's going to move to China, I think later, at the start of the new year. Same with Oscar. And then a lot of mediums on the news they published that a Chinese club wanted to buy Ronaldo for like 300 million. I mean, thank God we're not going to sell them because I mean China could be taking all of our players away from Europe if we decide to sell
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. And that came as a bit of a surprise to me. I mean, Oscar going to
to everyone. Yeah,
um, yeah, to the league in China.
because he's still
Obviously, I
young.
haven't.
He's still young.
Oh yeah, definitely, and it makes you think. Why he's not competing in one of those top leagues like a Bundesliga, like an EPL. One obvious reason is because of the money. His wage would be astronomical and would probably rival any player in the English Premier League from Pogba. I wonder if he's earning more than Pogba. He
Well,
might be.
the transfer fee was 60 million pounds, so it just tells you how much they have.
Yeah, is a Chinese league like how do they have this much money? I haven't really heard of the Chinese league apart from rumors connecting Wayne Rooney to a potential transfer to the Chinese league. Oscar was a bit out of the blue. Um,
Well,
y-
they're just yeah, they're just managing to and you know how A League or MLS they also manage to get these old players that only have a few years left in them. China is I guess trying to do the same, but trying to bring them with in their prime. And I mean I already know managers, Spanish managers, and I mean not top managers that have won a lot of trophies, but managers that have been in you would say the top five European divisions that have gone over to China as well. So that makes players, some players want to play for them.
yeah, that's exactly right. And the MLS, I mean, they've brought in some high quality players. That have been towards the tail end of their careers. Players that spring to mind: Thierry Henry, Tim
Drogba.
Cahill, Drogba. Did Drogba play?
The
No.
yeah, he ended
Yeah.
up playing for Toronto. I mean, off the top of my head, but I remember players. Not well. The three easy ones would be Villa, Lampard, and Pirlo for New
Mhm.
York.
Of course, Andres Pirlo, obviously a stunning player for the Italian national side, and indeed Juventus. Um, and it's great for the sport as a whole, to have these players promote, not just themselves but grow the sport in other countries. I think that's so important, especially when you're talking about these. Well, the MLS is not a minor league anymore, but it used to be. But with these players like Gerard, who's retired now,
Mm.
Lampard, Perlo. I mean, these players give notoriety and influence to the sport, because in America, you don't really think about soccer. You think about um, NFL, for instance.
Yeah.
And, you need these players to ensure that, you know, on the newspaper the next day, it's near the front page or, you know, close to. Um, and it's all about gaining public traction, gaining sponsors. That's what it's all about. The English Premier League has a huge deal with the Barclays. I think they're a bank. I think, um,
Yeah, I
and
mean they don't have it anymore, but they don't have it anymore. But this season they had the biggest TV deal yet.
yes.
And as a Spaniard, I think we should learn from that because I mean Atletico. I just most Madrid fans hate them, and I don't. I think they've done incredibly well in the last half decade. Because they've just come out of nowhere. I mean, they used to win a lot back in the day. Black and white days on the TV screen, but yeah, in the modern age, they were really struggling, and out of nowhere they've come out. But the Premier League, they should learn from them because they just spread the wealth of all those TV deals.
Mm,
And I mean,
absolutely.
it's true that Man United gets a lot, but I mean, just look at other teams and Leicester. We're going to say it again. They bought a player for 20 million in the
Mm.
summer.
Are you referring to Ahmed Musa or?
Yeah, Musa. Yeah,
Yeah, see, he's someone that really fits Leicester City's squad, because Claudio Ranieri likes to adopt, that counter-attacking method. When you've got players like Vardy, Musa up front with extreme pace, um, it's a very intelligent fit. And I think what you get with some of these top clubs is that, you know, luxury can almost be a poison in some ways, because you get players which you don't really need. Um, and also it can go the other way. You can get rid of players that you actually needed. Look at Kevin De Bruyne moving from Chelsea to Manchester City. I mean,
mm,
he is one of the best players in the world. Let's be frank. I mean,
he
he is an
is.
absolutely stunning player. Uh, Adept on both his left and right foot. Um, and I couldn't see why Chelsea got rid of him during that. Romelu Lukaku, is another one
Sh-
who's a beast.
Sh- Schürrle as well.
Schürrle, so he's another winger that Chelsea got rid of. But sometimes you need
Mata.
it. Yeah, the list goes on and on. And at these top clubs, um, sometimes fans, expect too much from a manager's side and a player's side. Uh,
Mm.
and you look at someone like Morgan Schneiderlin, right? He went to Manchester United from Southampton. Great player, but he's not getting enough minutes in the team. And he could play at really any top club and vie for a not a starting 11, but like a squad position at least.
Rotation, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, but whereas with Leicester City, they can spend money knowing that, if it's in the region of 20 million, that they're most likely going to contribute something. Memphis Depay was worth 20 million, and he hasn't really contributed much at all. That's mainly due to the rise of Martial, Rashford.
Mhm.
You know, these things can happen. You mentioned the TV rights deal. The EPL is just growing, and I think that the financial stability of football in general is very it's strong. It's strong. Forgetting the FIFA issues, the model is there from having players like Lampard, Gerrard, going to other countries, finishing their careers there. Some people though they don't like that because they say that the players should end their career on a high instead of going to one of the lesser leagues. But I'm not of that view. I think it does a great thing for the sport. It prolongs the player's career. um,
Mhm.
David Beckham is an example as well, from America, and then he also went from America to PSG for a season. Um,
No one
what?
expected that.
Yeah, are you a fan of players in their towards the end of their career going to another league, say like the American League?
Obviously, I mean, the prettiest thing is to well, Gerrard. I mean, it's true that he didn't retire at Liverpool, but end of. Obviously, he didn't win the Premier League, so he'll always be haunted for that. But it's not his fault. I mean, the Premier League is so hard to win, and Liverpool have struggled for ages. But no, I'm with you that, and also I think that the more you promote the sport anywhere, the better. I think with any sport, though, that's what when you have such iconic players. And also, it's good for the market. You're going to get revenue out of it. It's not like it's a financial loss. And yeah, speaking of Gerard, for instance, he retired with LA Galaxy, but he'll always be remembered a Liverpool player. So I'm with you on it.
Yeah, but you hear some other players like Cristiano Ronaldo has made the comment that he'd prefer to, keep his reputation strong and end his career at a Real Madrid. And as a Manchester United supporter, I've always kind of wanted him to come back. But sometimes you have to trespass upon loyalty for what's good for the clubs. Before Real Madrid's UEFA Champions League win, there was a lot of criticism of the squad, especially of Rafa Benitez, and they deployed a very young squad in matches, with the likes of Mateo Kovacic, Carvajal, who's young but he's also got experience. Um, this is another one I'm trying to think of.
Mm,
Isco. Um,
Asensio, I can help you. I mean, Asensio, Lucas Vazquez. He's not too young, but yeah, he's young in terms of experience because he hasn't been at the club for too long. But I mean, I don't know how we won the Champions League last season, dude. Like we were, we ended the year before that, I guess all right, even though Barcelona won everything, but we were on a roll in the league, and then after Christmas we just dropped off a lot. And no one expected us to do anything. But Champions League is our competition. We just always seem to play well in there.
yeah. Oh yeah, Real Madrid. I think they have the most titles in the UEFA Champions League competition as a whole. Yeah, so I mean they've traditionally been a very strong team across all competitions, and we've had this discussion before. It's almost to be expected that Real Madrid, you know, wins a lot of the time or does well in tournaments because of the amount of money that members have to pay, which is only right. I mean, if you're paying so much money um, to get into like a normal league match or a cup match, you expect your team to play well. There's no two ways about it. And
Well, you don't. I mean, you don't expect. You don't even expect. You demand. you know.
yeah, that's a good illustration. Yeah, I mean, you demand results, and that's what causes. You need a strong manager in those clubs. Managers like David Moyes, he just didn't quite. I mean, I had a lot of sympathy for David Moyes. I felt that he got into Manchester United when the Manchester United squad was in a very high period of transition. Patrice Evra, Nemanja Vidic, uh, Rio Ferdinand, these players were getting older. I must say, though, that Patrice Evra has been doing absolutely amazing at Juventus. I mean, he is one of the best. You wouldn't like out of all the left backs in the world, Patrice Evra is. You wouldn't say he's like the best, but he is one of the most consistent players game to game you will ever find. He just continually gets the job
No,
done.
Juventus's fullbacks are insane this season. Let's be honest. I mean, they've had Evra for a couple of years now, but they've brought in Alves. I don't understand why he left Barcelona, but yeah, I mean, not a fan of his personality, but he's got a lot of talent. So they have great two fullbacks, Juventus.
Yeah, Alexandro from Brazil. Dani Alves, of course, from
Mm.
Barcelona. Um, and yeah, Juventus is a powerhouse. And before it used to be AC Milan. You had the likes of
Inter.
Ibrahimovic. Well, Ibrahimovic, I think, played at all three clubs. Did he not? Did he also play at Juventus
Nah, he played for both Inter and
and
AC
AC?
Milan.
Yes,
Both
yes,
Milan
yeah.
clubs, yeah.
Yeah, so and at AC Milan they had the likes of Beckham, Ronaldinho, Kaká. So they had some really top players, and we were talking
Pirlo
before.
played for them.
Yes, and
Pirlo
then
played for them as well.
he went to Juventus. Yeah, and we were talking about how you know clubs can languish a lot of money on players when they don't necessarily need them. Kaká's has had a great career, but with his move to Real Madrid, um, he was kind of struggling to play in the first 11. Looking back on it, do you think it was the right transfer to purchase Kaká at the time?
I think we bought him a bit old for my liking. I would have preferred Real Madrid to have gone in for him earlier in his career, and he would have definitely been a starting 11 player. But well, same thing happened with a lot of players at Real Madrid. David Beckham, he had the good, uh, well, not good game or two. He played a lot of good games, but in terms of trophies, it didn't work out too much with him either. But that happens. Um,
Yeah,
it's football.
that's exactly right, man. And moving on to another sport, UFC 207 was held today. So
Mm.
that I don't know if you heard. Do you follow that much, Lewis? The UFC?
Oh, I'm getting more in. I mean, obviously we're all busy, but yeah, I'm slowly getting more into it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Um, two women fought each other, I believe.
Yeah, so it was Amanda Nunes and Ronda Rousey. And I thought it'd just be good to just discuss some of the matchups because it was very interesting. Obviously, Ronda Rousey has kind of championed the women's side of MMA. Previous to her, there wasn't really, women weren't really allowed to compete because as a business in the UFC, they found most value in men. But I mean, Ronda Rousey has proven that women are just as capable of providing an entertaining fight. Here
Mm.
in Melbourne, I didn't go to this one, but I went to the latest one. But Ronda Rousey lost to Holly Holm
Mm.
and by knockout, and it was a devastating loss to her first one in the UFC, and today was her second loss of her career in the UFC, and it was just over 40 seconds. Um, and you have to wonder, is she contemplating retirement? What exactly is she going to do? Um, because what she did, Lewis, was she had less media obligations. She requested that, and she was granted it
Mm.
because she's done a lot to the company. But she had more or less hardly any media obligations. A lot of the media went to her opponent, and she went to the octagon in great physical shape, but she got absolutely destroyed. And you see it with Conor McGregor. He was pulled from a card because he didn't want to do as much media. But I think the UFC athletes need to realize that it's kind of part of what you need to do as an athlete. Um, and I mean, it's what soccer players do. Your main job is to perform well on the pitch, but you have to fulfill your media obligations because the fans, fans like you want to know who's playing on your team rather than just okay, Cristiano Ronaldo from Portugal is here. You want to know the backstory from where they began. Cristiano Ronaldo was born in poverty, made his way up to Sporting Lisbon, went to Manchester United, made a name for himself there, then went to his childhood dream club in Real Madrid. I mean, these are the stories which supplement the greatness of athletes overall. Um,
Mm.
so, do you think media participation is crucial in the UFC? I mean, to grow the sport at least.
I mean, I'm with you. I think media it depends. It varies on the country, though, mate. Like, if you ever come here, you'll kind of understand why not keep most of the journalists. We need to sort of know their feelings or game. Those kind of it's what journalists. There's a small is to my liking in Spain. I wouldn't say a vast majority, but there's kind of destroy the relationship with the fans because they make up and it's a shame, but the players what they should see, um, you know, deny those myths and tell us the fans how they really feel and the truth of any story.
Yeah, the truth can definitely be distorted in some ways. I know that the English press, there's quite a bit of backlash towards them at times. Um, and when you're dealing with public figures, they're used to inaccurate information. But what
Mm.
they're not used to is, uh, facts which affect their reputation that are not true, and that's definitely right. I mean, as a journalist, you need to be correct with what you're saying, correct with what you're writing. I find it's more written articles than anything else, especially with the term clickbait. I mean, articles generally are looking for, clicks to, for income, for revenue to generate, for advertisements to be followed through, clicked on. They're going for the headline. Um, This might be a bit funny to you, but it's kind of relevant. I wrote an article recently, and the title, it wasn't about soccer, but the title was it was admittedly a little bit tactical because I did want attention to it, but the article was called Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor need each other. And
Yeah, I read it.
how did you read it?
Yeah, no, of course.
Yeah, so basically what I was trying to achieve there was viewers. Technically, they don't need each other because they've made all the money in the world. But why I said they needed each other, that is a couple of things. One, Floyd Mayweather, he's 49-0, okay? And he's one win off 50, and if he wins 50, he'll surpass Rocky Marciano's record in boxing of 49 wins without a loss. So he'll be the first one to do it. What's
Mm.
better for Floyd Mayweather? A Manny Pacquiao rematch or a Conor McGregor crossover boxing match? The revenue, both would make huge revenue, but the revenue would obviously go to the Conor McGregor match because you want to see how a UFC fighter with really good boxing skills. I got a lot of criticism for this, but I don't think it was
Yeah, I
warranted.
saw.
Um, yeah, see, I got a bit upset about this. Conor McGregor is a very good boxer. He just because he isn't that doesn't mean he can't box. If you look at the UFC fights, boxing is pretty much his pure arsenal. And he's even touted, potentially doing a boxing match without Floyd. Had a background in kickboxing, um, but that's part of the gig in media. You need to have tough skin. And I was talking to my mum about this. Sometimes people are not going to agree with you, and you need to cop that because I realize that as a media guy, you're also dishing out criticism as well, even if it's opinionated, factual based. And so I've realized that it's fair game, and that's all well and good. But I think people need to realize that um, Conor McGregor, if he did fight Floyd, it would not be as one-sided as people think it is. I think people would get a surprise at how good Conor McGregor is, both from a footwork perspective and also a boxing perspective. Footwork is obviously one of the most integral things in a martial arts match or a boxing match, moving in and out of range. And Floyd Mayweather is obviously a defensive architect. Um, so my whole article there was what's the match to create? And if you don't think that Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor is not a match which people would be interested in, that's 100% wrong. Um, this is a great fight because it shows, whether Conor McGregor's self belief, and he has a lot of it, compared with Money Mayweather, who's never had a loss. Could Conor McGregor, you know, achieve that win that no one else has had on Floyd Mayweather in his professional boxing career? Um,
Oh, no,
I
I
don't
mean,
see why that's not interesting.
no, it definitely is, but I understand, the criticism you got because um, no, a lot of people were going for Pacquiao, and he still didn't manage to. I mean, it's 49 in 0 we're talking about. It's not 5 or 6. That's why a lot of people um would criticize articles like yours or views like yours, that this match shouldn't happen because they see no chance. But that's the whole point of McGregor wanting to do it, to prove people wrong. Um, so I mean, he's free to do it. And we'll just have to wait and see how it goes. But for me, what I find interesting is that I mean, I guess boxing and UFC they do have similarities, but at the end of the day, they're still two different sports. And there have been athletes in the past, especially in Australia, because you have, you treat all your codes kind of at the same level. And some players have changed, and yeah, the fans of those players haven't been a fan of that either. So some Conor McGregor fans might be
Yeah,
um
and
not happy with him doing boxing because they don't view him as that. But I mean, he's free to do it. We'll see what happens.
yeah, I just think it'd be a great match to watch. I'd be more interested in a Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather match because it's more unpredictable. I think if Manny Pacquiao was to box Floyd, the same thing would most likely happen. If of course, a lot of people were going for Manny Pacquiao. I mean, a lot of people hate Mayweather, and there's a couple of reasons to it. One is his, money persona. He likes to flaunt his money. Put all that aside, he's one of the best boxers that has ever lived, and Manny Pacquiao definitely had his moments. He even wobbled Mayweather with his left hand. I'm saying, why can't McGregor do that? McGregor arguably has more power than Pacquiao. He's a taller guy. He's 5'9", McGregor. Manny Pacquiao's 5'7", 5'6". So um, he's got the range to trouble Mayweather, and he's also got the confidence to back it up. We haven't really seen someone like a Conor McGregor before. In the UFC, he went up to 170 pounds to fight Nate Diaz. He was traditionally a 145 pounder. He went up 25 pounds. I mean, and he eventually atoned for his loss against Nate Diaz. But in a boxing sense, you never see that. There's always a few pounds here and there that fighters are fighting. But because the UFC is such a new sport, the weight divisions, it's hard to make weight sometimes because what you have, Lewis, is you have for instance, let's talk about Conor McGregor, 145, 155, 170. So he was cutting so much weight to get down to 145. He was about 5'9", and he was cutting so much weight. I mean, traditionally he's about that 80 kilos range, and he was cutting down to 66. And at weigh-ins, he looks so drawn out. He seriously, and he looks so dehydrated. But he won the title. He went
Mm.
up to 170 pounds, got beat, then won again, then went down to 155 pounds. There's a huge gap between the weight divisions. It's a case of, how much do you want to dehydrate your body so that you can be competitive? And that's something that the UFC, I love the UFC as a sport, but as an athlete, as the sport progresses, you have to have more weight divisions because what you're having now is guys who are cutting too much weight and in some cases missing weight because there's too much to cut. And that's where more weight divisions need to be entered because there's so many aspects to martial arts, from the fighting to the weight cut. I was talking to a friend of ours, Matthew Horrigan. Obviously doesn't compete in the at the UFC level, but he's represented Australia before in Taekwondo, and he was talking to me about the weight cut, and he said, yeah, sometimes it can be a grueling thing, and he's only cutting 5-6 kilos compared to some of these other guys where they're cutting over 10 kilos, over 20 kilos. It's a real issue in mixed martial arts because you want athletes to perform uh, almost at their best, at their prime level of conditioning,
Mm.
and but even even in most sports, though, often you're playing injured. In being that stereotype, Lewis, of soccer players being weak. Um, how would you? What would you say to that?
Well, I mean, there's a bit of everything, but that happens in any sport. Um, gee, those comments, sometimes I don't even want to bother. I mean, because it's easy to criticize from the outside, once you're in it. And I mean, it's true, soccer is not, you know, the strongest sport in terms of body conditioning and that, but you do need a lot of speed, for instance, and reaction time, like good reaction time, and to get to the ball and or vertical jump for headers. So all sports have their own thing, mate. And when you criticize from the outside, it's very easy. Once you get into it, it's because I mean taekwondo. It's interesting you bring up those weight divisions. Yeah, I mean losing 20 kilos. That's just insane. I wouldn't be asking them for that much either. Um, but isn't that just the question? Isn't that kind of like the whole point, or most of it? Um, UFC, taekwondo, all these sports to make them lose a bit of weight, or is there
Yeah.
more to it?
No, no, no. The whole weight cutting process is actually generally it's a positive thing. What you don't want, I mean, when you're going into a fight, what you don't want is another fighter to weigh 20 kilos or 10 kilos more than you. 10 kilos is a lot.
Yeah.
Weight counts. That's why you have heavyweights. Brock Lesnar competing at heavyweight. You don't want him to get destroyed. I mean, that's the concept of weight division.
Mm,
But in the case of what we're talking about, weight cutting, lucky some guys have a body type where they can cut, but it's not a lot and they're still competitive. But some athletes need to cut so much weight to be competitive that it's almost even fighting. See, that's the issue here because you're almost risking your health.
mm,
Fighters. We're not just talking a quarter. We're talking, quite almost 50% of UFC fighters, I would guess, um, have, some sort of issues with weight. It's important for both fighters to be near the weight of each other, so it's a competitive fight. But, um, weight, you can't be cutting too much weight. And this is something that UFC as a sport will need to improve so that all athletes are comfortable in a certain weight division. Because what Conor McGregor did from 145 to 170 pounds, you never hear that in boxing anymore. It's just unheard of because the competitive level of fighters goes up as the weight goes up. And, people don't realize just how much weight can help. It helps with your power. It helps with clinch work. So not when you're throwing strikes, but just wrestling in general. But what happens also, Lewis, is they have a hydration period as well. Weigh in, they weigh in, then they fight, and some fighters like McGregor can go from 145 to 160 pounds in the space of a day because 145 is just not his. It's just him weak. It's just him trying to make. It's like a skeleton. I mean, if you see pictures, I mean, people can attest to this. Conor McGregor looks like a skeleton. He really does. He looks so unhealthy at that weight,
mm,
and which is why he vacated his belt to 155. Problem in the UFC, and I think, I mean, it needs more popularity, which they're doing, and once they get that popularity, they need to start implementing um, more weight classes because otherwise it's just so unbeneficial to the athletes themselves. I had on a side note, I had an idea as we're wrapping this podcast up. Um,
mm,
we could potentially, so it's a bit more, maybe a bit more regular. We could potentially find a podcasting stream, Lewis, and kind of do a regular, not a regular, but maybe like once weekly, or just like during the month, or whatever, we can upload podcasts and stuff with our own program name. I'll have to look into some things about it, but I was just thinking that in the back of my head, maybe even I don't think iTunes is a possibility. I'll look into that. I have uploaded some things on iTunes before, but that was through another media organization.
Mm.
Podcasting websites out there. So if you're interested in doing it, um, I'll give it some thought. I mean, I think that'd be good. So having discussions from Spain to it can just out. From any other like podcasting website?
Um, Gee, you would probably know more than me about mediums, but off the top of my head, SoundCloud could be one. Yeah, how did we not think of that?
Yeah.
Um,
The thing about SoundCloud though is that it has a quota of minutes, and then you have to pay. So
uh,
I was
yeah,
trying during this podcast to record our conversation, and I'm sure there's a way to do that. But I mean, it's something to think about, or whether we just do it through YouTube and create just a podcast name and see how much interest it gets. Because I like doing this with you. I think we're knowledgeable in certain areas of sport. So um,
no,
yeah, I'll
I'm learning a lot from you, mate, about UFC, and you're getting me into it. So let's roll.
yeah. So doing like a little bit of soccer, but then almost a little bit of UFC. So getting you more comfortable with the sport as well, but not too uncomfortable. So mainly about as we both share that interest. A little bit about AFL. I know you. How much do you follow the AFL though now?
Oh, well, didn't do too bad last season in fantasy, did I? So I think that shows that I keep my interest.
Yeah.
Time zones are just really difficult, mate. But I last season I watched the odd game every weekend.
Mm.
Um, yeah, your that sport is just so original, dude. Like I still don't understand why it's taking you kind of so long to promote it. I know it's what makes part of. It's not the only thing. You have a lot of things that make your country unique, but footy is one of them. But if you promote it, I'm pretty convinced a lot of people would like it. I've already
Well,
shown it to some
this
of my
year,
friends.
yeah, this year that Port Adelaide are going to China. I forget who they're playing. It's a regular season game, so it's not a pre-season match.
Oh, so they're doing like
Um,
an NBA because NBA is doing that in Europe as well.
yeah, so it's part of growing the sport. They're hoping for about 10,000 there um, in China, which is really interesting to see how that goes. Port Adelaide's going to be a part of it. They have connections to do with sponsorship in China.
Mhm.
Um, so they are playing. I'm just trying to find out who they're playing. Gold Coast. So they're versing the Gold Coast Suns in China on the 14th of May. So that was really historic. And it'll be great to see, how the Chinese fans warm to the game. Um, but I'd like to, wish all the viewers and listeners out there, as well as to you, Lewis, happy New Year. It will be 2017 in about 2 minutes from Melbourne. So we'll wrap it up there. But I hope you enjoyed it. And who knows, we might be doing a few more of these a bit more regularly, maybe even having a podcast stream website. I'll do a bit of thinking behind it. I'll converse with Lewis about it, and we'll see what we can do. But thanks, Lewis, for coming on the show.
Thanks again, mate. Let's wrap this up before 2016 ends.
Absolutely. Done.
Till
Happy New
next
Year,
time.
everybody.